The guitar in Chichi's room had dust on its strings, but the notebooks stacked under her bed were alive with fire. Page after page of lyrics, half-finished melodies, and sketches of stage lights filled her little world. Chichi had the kind of music that could move a soul to tears, the kind that could make strangers dance like they'd known joy all their lives. But the world never got to hear it. It wasn't because she lacked talent, far from it. Chichi's voice was velvet. Her words carried the kind of raw honesty that made silence bow to them. But she lacked the one thing every dreamer needs: belief. Her parents thought music was a hobby, not a career. Her friends clapped for her in private, but none ever said, "Go for it." And the industry. It was a locked door she didn't have the keys to open. So, Chichi wrote. She wrote in her diaries, on napkins, on the backs of receipts. She recorded humming sessions on her cracked phone, whispering promises to herself, "One day, I'll be brave enough to share this." But life has a cruel way of cutting short the things we postpone. The accident was sudden. A rainy night, a speeding truck, and a dream snuffed out at 25. On the other side of the city, Zara was clinging to life. Zara wasn't anyone special, at least not to the world. She worked a part-time job at a small cafe, cracking jokes with customers and sneaking free muffins when her boss wasn't looking. She loved music, sure, who didn't? But she wasn't gifted. She had tried karaoke nights, open mic performances, even a few YouTube covers. The comments were kind but blunt, nice effort, but not star material. Still, she dreamed. Her room was plastered with posters of singers she admired, voices she wished she could have. But lately, her dreams had been overpowered by something far darker. Her heart was failing. The diagnosis had come months earlier, a rare condition that made each heartbeat a countdown. By the time the doctors told her she needed a transplant, her energy was fading fast. She spent nights hooked to machines, the rhythm of beeps and drips becoming the soundtrack of her life. Then came the call, "We found a match." Zara never knew whose heart she received. All she knew was that one moment she was lying in a sterile room, barely alive, and the next she was waking up, her chest aching but her body buzzing with a strange, electric newness. Recovery was slow. Walking felt like climbing a mountain. Eating felt like a chore. But there was something curious happening too. One morning, as she absent-mindedly tapped her fingers against the hospital tray, she realized she was drumming a rhythm she had never heard before, yet it felt familiar, like it had been living inside her all along. A week later, she caught herself humming in the shower. Not the off-key hums she used to do, but a melody that flowed smoothly, hauntingly, as if it belonged to someone else. She stopped, startled, water dripping down her face. Where did that come from? Her friends visited with balloons and flowers, cheering her on. But every time they left, Zara felt this invisible hand tugging at her chest, urging her to pick up a pen, to scribble down words, to capture melodies before they slipped away. She didn't even own a guitar, but her nurse had one. When Zara borrowed it, her fingers seemed to know where to go. Chords she had never practiced spilled out with ease, and before she realized it, she had written a full song in a single sitting. The lyrics. They didn't feel like hers. They spoke of fear, of hope, of hiding behind walls, of waiting for the courage to sing. When she played it back to herself, her voice cracked. Tears streamed down her face, and she clutched her chest like the heart inside her was trying to speak. One evening, weeks after she was discharged, Zara sat on her bed with her phone camera on. She pressed record, sang the song, and uploaded it to TikTok with a shrug. By morning, her phone was on fire. Notifications buzzed non-stop, thousands of likes, comments flooding in. This is pure magic. How can someone come out of nowhere with this much talent? I've got chills. Zara stared at the screen, her hands trembling. The world was hearing her, no, not her, but the music inside her, for the very first time. She didn't know it yet, but somewhere across town, Chichi's family was scrolling too. And when her cousin pressed play on Zara's video, his face went pale. Because the song Zara had just sung. It was written word for word in Chichi's old notebook. Zara couldn't explain it. The more days passed, the stronger the pull became. She'd sit in cafes and suddenly scribble lyrics on napkins, her hands moving as if guided by someone else. She'd wake up at night humming melodies she had never heard in her life, yet they felt achingly familiar. Her friends teased her, calling it post-surgery magic, but deep inside, she was unsettled. Still, the thrill was undeniable. That TikTok video had exploded far beyond her imagination. Millions of views. Thousands of shares. Comments comparing her to legends. Even a record label slid into her inbox, "We'd like to talk about your music." Zara stared at the email, stunned. Music had always been her dream, but she had long accepted that she didn't have the gift. Now, overnight, people were calling her a prodigy. She replayed the video, listening to herself sing. The voice was hers, but the soul in it felt borrowed. It wasn't just the music. Strange things kept happening. She visited a music store one afternoon, just to browse. As soon as she stepped inside, her eyes darted toward a dusty keyboard in the corner. Without thinking, she sat down, her fingers dancing across the keys. A small crowd gathered as a haunting ballad filled the shop, raw and heartbreaking. When she finished, silence hung for a bit before applause erupted. Zara's cheeks burned. I've never played before, she confessed, and the store clerk chuckled, "Could have fooled us." At home, her notebooks began to fill rapidly. Song after song, verse after verse. Some upbeat and playful, others drenched in melancholy. She wrote until her wrist ached. But every time she read them back, she swore she had another voice layered over hers. A whisper, almost. A presence. Weeks turned into months, and Zara's career began to take shape. The record label offered her a deal. Her manager, a sharp-tongued woman named Kemi, coached her ruthlessly. "The world thinks you're a genius. Don't waste it." Her first single hit streaming platforms. Within a week, it charted. A month later, Zara was booked for live performances, TV interviews, magazine covers. People called her the girl who came out of nowhere. And she loved it. The lights, the stage, the roar of the crowd chanting her name, it was intoxicating. She finally felt like she was living the dream she had once plastered on her bedroom walls. But when the noise faded and she was alone, the unease crept back. Because in her quietest moments, she heard a faint hum inside her chest. The hum of another woman's voice. One night, after a long studio session, Zara dreamed. She was standing in a small, dimly lit room. Papers were scattered everywhere, songs scribbled on every surface. And there she was, a young woman with warm eyes and a guitar in her lap, humming softly. "Who are you?" Zara whispered. The woman looked up, smiled sadly, and said, "My name is Chichi." Zara jolted awake, drenched in sweat. Her heart pounded violently in her chest. She tried to dismiss it as exhaustion, but the dream felt too real. The name clung to her like perfume. The breaking point came at a small concert. Zara had been performing her hit song, the one that first went viral. Afterward, a man approached her backstage. Middle-aged, with weary eyes. He held out his phone, showing her a photo of a young woman. Zara froze. It was the same woman from her dream. The man said. His voice cracked.
"This is my cousin. Her name was Chichi. She wrote that song you just sang."
Zara's stomach dropped. He explained quickly, Chichi had been an aspiring musician who died in an accident. She had filled journals and recordings with songs but never had the chance to share them.
"That song,"
he said firmly,
"was hers." I've seen the notebook myself.
Zara's lips trembled.
I don't know how that's possible.
She stammered. The man's eyes hardened.
You need to know what you're doing. You're singing with her heart. Don't forget where those songs came from.
And then he walked away, leaving Zara trembling in the green room, her reflection staring back at her from the mirror. When she told Kemi about the encounter, her manager waved it off.
People will say anything to steal your shine. Don't let them get in your head. You're a star now. Focus on the music, not some grieving family looking for relevance.
But Zara couldn't shake it. She began digging, searching online, until she stumbled across an article, "Local Music Enthusiast Dies in Accident at 25." The photo was unmistakable. It was Chichi. Zara's chest tightened. She touched the scar from her surgery. Was it possible? The fame continued, louder than ever. Sold-out shows. Fan pages. Red carpets. But behind the glamour, a storm was brewing. Because Chichi's family wasn't done. They had proof of her old notebooks, her recordings, her words. And soon, the world would start asking questions Zara wasn't ready to answer. And deep in her soul, Zara knew the truth she was running from. She hadn't written a single note of her so-called genius music. She was carrying someone else's voice. The headlines came first in whispers.
Is Zara really writing her own songs?
Local family claims her music belonged to their late daughter.
Scandal brewing around pop's new star.
At first, Zara ignored them. Her manager, Kemi, shut down interview questions with a sharp smile and a firm "next." Her fans defended her online, drowning skeptics with hashtags like #TeamZara and #BonneGenius. But the whispers grew louder. And every time Zara opened her mouth to sing, guilt pressed down on her chest like a weight. The truth was, she felt Chichi. Not just in dreams anymore, but in broad daylight. A faint hum when she strummed her guitar. A shadow of another voice when she rehearsed in the studio. Sometimes, when she wrote, she'd look down and realize her handwriting had changed, curvier, neater, not hers. It was as though Chichi hadn't just given her a heart, she had moved in. One evening, after a high-profile performance, Zara collapsed backstage. The medics rushed to her side, but she insisted she was fine. Later, alone in her dressing room, she looked in the mirror and whispered,
Why me? Why give me all of this?
The lights flickered. And for a moment, just a moment, she saw another face in the mirror. Chichi's face.
Sing them for me.
A soft voice echoed.
Sing what I never could.
Zara stumbled back, her heart racing. She wasn't sure if she was losing her mind or if the connection was real. But one thing was clear, every success she had was tethered to a girl the world had forgotten. Meanwhile, Chichi's family refused to fade into the background. Her cousin, the same man who had confronted Zara backstage, began sharing videos of Chichi's old recordings online. Grainy phone clips of a shy young woman singing into a cheap mic, lyrics identical to Zara's hits. The internet exploded.
This is proof.
Zara stole from a dead girl.
Fraud. Cancel her.
Kemi fought back, calling it a coincidence, accusing the family of chasing fame. But Zara knew the truth. Each clip was a dagger. Each comment chipped at her confidence. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The applause that once thrilled her now sounded hollow, laced with accusation. Her fans grew divided. Some stood fiercely by her side, even if the songs came from Chichi, Zara brought them to life. Others turned on her, "You're nothing but a thief." At a live concert, protesters gathered outside, holding signs, "Justice for Chichi." Give credit where it's due. Zara nearly cancelled the show, but Kemi forced her on stage.
Fame isn't for the soft-hearted.
She hissed.
You either own this or you let them destroy you.
so Zara sang. And the crowd still roared. But as she hit the final note, she swore she saw a figure in the audience, a young woman in the shadows, nodding as though giving permission. Chichi. The breaking point came in an interview. A journalist asked the question Zara had been dreading.
People say your music isn't yours. They say you're singing the songs of a late artist named Chichi. What do you say to that?
Her throat went dry. Kemi leaned forward, ready to deflect, but Zara's lips parted. She began, her voice trembling.
I don't know how to explain it. But sometimes, I feel like...
She stopped herself, blinking back tears.
Next question, please.
The clip went viral. Alone that night, Zara locked herself in her studio. She played back the recordings in her head, the unfinished melodies, the whispers in her dreams. Then she pulled out a fresh notebook and began writing, not her words, but Chichi's. The lyrics were raw. I hid my songs beneath my bed, afraid of all the things unsaid. But through another's voice, I rise. My heart still beats, I'm still alive. By the time she finished, she was sobbing. She realized she wasn't just a thief, she was a vessel. But was that enough? Could the world ever forgive her? Could Chichi's family? The storm only intensified. Lawsuits loomed. Fans clashed online. Kemi urged her to keep silent.
You don't owe anyone an explanation. Stars don't survive by apologizing. They survive by shining brighter.
But Zara was exhausted. The fame that once felt like magic now felt like a curse. Every award, every sold-out show, every screaming fan, it all carried the weight of someone else's dream. And as she stared at her reflection, one question haunted her. Am I living my dream, or Chichi's unfinished one? That night, Zara dreamed again. She was on a stage, empty seats stretching into darkness. Chichi appeared beside her, guitar in hand. You don't have to fight me, Chichi whispered. Just don't forget me. Zara reached out, but the dream dissolved. When she woke, she knew she couldn't keep running. The truth would break her career or set her free. The night of the Global Music Awards was supposed to be Zara's crowning moment. She had 3 nominations, a stadium-sized fan base chanting her name outside, and a green dress that shimmered like it was spun from starlight. Yet behind the makeup, her eyes told another story. She was exhausted. Exhausted from smiling in interviews, exhausted from dodging accusations, exhausted from the ghost in her chest whispering songs she couldn't claim. Fame, once a glittering prize, now felt like a heavy crown pressing into her skull. Backstage, Kemi fussed over her.
Tonight, you win. You thank your fans, you thank the label, and you keep moving. No talk about Chichi. No weakness. Understand?
Zara nodded numbly, but her heart raced. When her name was called for Song of the Year, the crowd erupted. Flashing lights, confetti, a sea of applause. She walked onto the stage, trophy in hand, the microphone gleaming in front of her. She opened her mouth to give the speech she'd rehearsed. But the words wouldn't come. Her chest tightened, and instead of Kemi's instructions, she heard the faint strum of a guitar in her mind. Chichi's voice echoed, "Sing them for me. Sing what I never could." Zara's throat went dry. The arena waited. Millions were watching live. Finally, she said it.
These songs, they are not all mine.
A ripple went through the crowd. Gasps. Murmurs. Cameras zoomed in.
I've been carrying a voice inside me.
She continued, tears threatening to fall.
A voice that belonged to someone else. A young woman named Chichi. She was the real writer of many of the songs you love.
The silence was deafening. Then, chaos. Shouts. Applause. Outrage. Confusion. Zara held the trophy tight and whispered into the mic.
She gave me her heart. And together, we gave the world her music.
Backstage, Kemi was livid.
You've destroyed everything. Do you realize what you've done? She slammed her clipboard down.
But Zara felt lighter than she had in months. For the first time, she hadn't lied. The fallout was instant. Some fans praised her bravery. She honored Chichi. That's beautiful. Others turned vicious. So she's been a fraud all along. News outlets replayed the speech endlessly, dissecting every word. Chichi's family finally broke their silence. In a televised interview, her mother said softly, "That was my daughter's dream, to share her songs. If Zara is truly carrying her, maybe that dream lives on." But not everyone was forgiving. Her cousin called it manipulation. She only admitted the truth because she was caught. Legal battles heated up, with demands for royalties, songwriting credits, and public acknowledgement. Zara's label threatened to drop her. Brands cancelled endorsements. Concerts were put on hold. The life she had built was crumbling. Yet Zara didn't feel regret. For the first time, she felt human. Still, the pressure broke her in private. One night, she sat on her balcony, staring at the city lights, guitar in hand. She played one of Chichi's unfinished melodies, the kind she used to hear in her dreams. Her voice cracked mid-verse. "Why did you choose me, Chichi?" she whispered to the night sky. No answer came, but a strange peace settled over her. She realized it wasn't about being chosen, it was about what she chose to do now. Then came the invitation, a tribute concert for late musicians. Organizers asked Zara to headline, but she hesitated. Would the world accept her? Or spit her out? Kemi begged her not to.
You're already hanging by a thread. One more misstep and you're finished.
But Zara shook her head.
I don't care about being finished. I care about being real.
The night of the tribute, the stage was bathed in soft golden light. Zara walked out, guitar slung over her shoulder, no glittering dress this time, just jeans and a simple blouse.
This song,
she said into the mic, voice trembling,
was never mine. It belonged to a girl who wrote in notebooks, who dreamed of singing to you but never had the chance. Tonight, I want you to meet her through me.
And she began to play. The arena went silent as her voice carried the haunting melody. Every lyric dripped with honesty, grief, and love. By the time she reached the chorus, the crowd was on its feet, swaying, some wiping tears. For the first time, Zara wasn't chasing fame. She was giving it away. When the song ended, she looked up, and for a fleeting moment, she thought she saw her, Chichi, standing in the shadows of the stage, smiling. And Zara smiled back. The tribute concert changed everything. Clips of Zara's stripped-down performance flooded social media. Hashtags like #Chichi's song and #The Heart Singer trended worldwide. Fans who once doubted her now admitted they had felt something different in that performance, something raw, something real. For the first time since her rise to fame, Zara wasn't being praised for perfection. She was being celebrated for truth. But truth had its cost. Her label terminated her contract. Kemi walked out, muttering, "I don't do ghost and pity parties." Lawsuits dragged on, royalties were contested, and talk shows debated her scandal daily. Yet amid the chaos, an unexpected call came. It was from Chichi's mother. "Can we meet?" They met in a quiet cafe on a rainy afternoon. Zara was nervous, hands trembling as she stirred her untouched tea. When Chichi's mother walked in, her eyes held both weariness and warmth.
"You've carried my daughter farther than I ever thought possible,"
she said softly, sitting down.
"But I need to know, was it real? Or just a story for fame?"
Zara's eyes brimmed with tears.
I wish I could explain it better. I don't know why it happened. I just know that her heart beats inside me, and her songs, they live in me too.
Silence hung between them, broken only by the sound of rain tapping the windows. Finally, Chichi's mother reached across the table and squeezed Zara's hand.
Then sing them. For both of you.
That moment marked a new beginning. Zara and Chichi's family agreed to collaborate. Future albums would be credited jointly, songs by Chichi is, performed by Zara below. Royalties were split, a foundation was created in Chichi's name to support young, unheard songwriters, and Zara took on the role of ambassador, not for herself, but for every silenced voice. The final chapter came at a massive charity concert months later. The stadium was packed, not with people hungry for glitter and spectacle, but with those eager to witness the music that had survived death itself. Zara stepped onto the stage, barefoot this time, holding an acoustic guitar. The crowd roared, but she lifted her hand for quiet.
This song is called The Song That Set Us Free,
she said.
Chichi wrote the first verse. I wrote the second. And the chorus belongs to both of us. As she played, her voice trembled with emotion, but it grew stronger with each line. The melody soared, filling the night air with something more than sound, it felt like release. The audience swayed, lighters and phone torches glowing like stars in the darkness. Midway through, something extraordinary happened. The giant LED screen behind her flickered, and a photo of Chichi appeared, smiling, notebook in hand, eyes sparkling with a dream unfulfilled. The crowd erupted, chanting her name. Chichi! 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 Zara strummed harder, tears streaming down her cheeks, her voice cracking but refusing to break. For the first time, she wasn't alone on stage. She was sharing it with the girl who had given her life twice over. By the final chorus, the entire stadium sang along. Thousands of voices, one heart. The video went viral within hours. Not because Zara hit every note, but because the world felt the truth. Journalists called it the performance of a generation. Others simply said it felt like healing. For Zara, it wasn't about redemption anymore. It was about freedom, hers, Chichi's, and every unheard artist. Later that night, back in her dressing room, Zara sat quietly, clutching her guitar. The noise of the concert still echoed in her ears. She closed her eyes, whispering, "We did it, Chichi."
And for the first time in months, the silence in her chest was complete. Not empty, just at peace. The ghost had been heard. The debt had been paid. And Zara, finally, was free.